Welcome to another episode of Axe of the Blood God, an independent RPG podcast. I'm your host, Kat Bailey. Joining me, as always, my lovely co-host, Nadia Oxford.
Hello, Kat. Welcome to the age post-Pokemon card game, telephone game where everyone just basically got lost in their phones and never came back because it was Pokemon card games on a telephone.
Just rip packs forever and ever and ever, forever and ever and ever and ever
One
and ever.
free day. How can I lose?
Also joining me, my equally lovely co-host, Eric Van Allen.
I don't have a problem. I just need to know, like, how all of y'all are cracking the Deep Art Mewtwo, and I'm not, because I swear to God, I know people who have, like, 3 of those Mewtwo's, and I don't have a single one yet, and it's annoying me at this point. I would like a Mewtwo. So if you have a Mewtwo, tell me how to get one.
I have a Mewtwo. It's fine. I don't use it, actually. My MVP is actually an EX Executor.
Yeah.
Which is fierce. It's fierce. And finally, joining us, returning champion, friend of the pod, it's Liana Hafer.
I used to main Mewtwo in Melee for a long time.
Really?
Yeah.
You were one of the contrarians maining Mewtwo, huh?
Yeah, I like to do whatever is not popular. So
yeah. Mewtwo was kind of fun to play as, because you could do the... If you could catch them in midair, or you could do the little the throw, it was fun.
Why was Mewtwo not popular? He's cool.
He sucked.
He's just a bad character. Really bad character, competitively in like every way. Yeah.
I guess you don't see people playing him much. What about Ganondorf? Wasn't he like a clone?
Yeah, he was
Ganon was a Captain Falcon clone.
But he had the sword, which made him like really busted.
It was a Falcon clone with Samus's like charge up ranged attack, basically.
Oh, that's fine. Yeah. I can beat that.
He has a sword as of the current Smash, but anyway, this is not a Smash Brothers podcast.
It's not.
Instead, this week we'll be talking about Dragon Age: The Veilguard, which is officially out. We're doing a review. Liana reviewed it for IGN.com. You should go check it out over there. We'll be talking. We got a lot to talk about in this week's episode. We're going to be talking about Monster Hunter Wilds. We're going to be talking about Dragon Quest III HD 2D. We'll be talking a little bit about Pokemon TCG Pocket. I might slip in a little Echoes of Wisdom talk because I'm playing it and it's so cute. I love it. Oh my god. And yeah, lots to discuss in this episode. But before we get to that point, if you enjoy the show, please support us on Patreon at patreon.com/BloodGodPod, where for just $1 a month you get the show ad-free and you get access to our Discord. And at the $10 level you get access to the Pantheon. We've got another Pantheon coming up this week. It's Shadowheart's Covenant. That'll be a fun one to talk about. And also we have our next Pantheon. The voting is complete. We were doing a Muso week, but once again we got derailed by Eric.
What? Don't put this on me. I have the receipts. I have receipts this time. It's not me, only me. Kat okayed this. I said, wouldn't it be fun to put Drakengard in there? Because Drakengard's a Muso. And Kat said, I'm okay with Drakengard, actually. So
the internet said, the internet tells me that Drakengard, a game I've never played, is 100% Muso. And I believe everything the internet tells me. So
that's a good plan. I'm very curious myself. I never played Drakengard, but it always kind of struck me as something I should experience once in my life. It's
going to be interesting to ask, is this a Pantheon or a Pandemonium?
Yeah, that's kind of so when we picked our selection for the Muso month, I wanted to kind of do a spread of what the Muso genre could be. Of course, people were noting that there were some notable exceptions. Sadly, our 5-year rule meant that 3 Hopes and P5 Strikers, which we probably would have put on the poll had we not had that rule, just couldn't make it in because of said rule, so I had to clarify that a few times over. But I do love 3 Hopes and Strikers, and hopefully if we do a Muso month further down the line, we can do that then. So yeah, even right now in the chat, come on y'all.
Right this second, right now.
Literally right now. I put it in the post why we don't have 3 Hopes there. I love 3 Hopes. I'm on the record loving 3 Hopes. But I kind of wanted to get a spread of stuff, so we did Dynasty Warriors 8 XL, which is probably like the best and most playable version of Dynasty Warriors today. I also love 3, 4, and 5 for various reasons for each of them, but 8 XL is a very good way of playing those games. That's kind of your classic. Dragon Quest Heroes 2 is kind of a weird open world RPG take on Musou that's kind of fun and interesting. Hyrule Warriors, kind of the start of the Nintendo crossover Musou era. And then Drakengard, which is, there are a lot of games out there that are Musou adjacent, your 99 Nights and stuff like that, that try to do something a little bit different, try to do something weird. It was also the start of Yoko Taro's universe that eventually became Nier, so it's like really fascinating. It's also notoriously not a lot of fun to play, so everybody gear up. It's going to be a good
Those
month.
Kavia games, I tells you.
I just remember magazines being mad about the game, and I don't even remember why, but I was just like, oh, that's a shame, because it seems like a cool idea.
jank.
Well, I mean, even
There's a lot of meditation to be done on how much a jank can be detracting to a game, whether or not being fun to play, not being fun to play is disqualifying, things like that. So it should be an interesting discussion, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely think it'll be one of the really good discussion months, like a fun game to talk about.
One of the fun discussion months. If you want to check out a Pantheon episode and get a feel for what you want have, the first couple years worth of Pantheon episodes are available to buy a la carte over on the Patreon, so you could go check them out. And we have a few just lurking around in the feeds here and there, so you can go listen to those as well.
Find them.
We do this every single month, and we've covered a lot of games at this point. We're going to be talking about Dragon Quest, for example. Today, we've covered 2 Dragon Quest games. We've done both 11 and 5. So, yeah, it's a great series. I really enjoy it. So go check it out. It's available to our premium subscribers. Okay. Let's now talk about Dragon Age The Veilguard, the first Dragon Age game in 10 years from BioWare. They finally got to the end of the road. If you weren't here last week, we did a primer on Dragon Age, which we looked back on the series over Origins and Dragon Age 2 and Inquisition and how BioWare got to this point. It's amazing that this game ultimately shipped. Like everything else in 2024, it was not without controversy. People argued over everything from the writing to the art style to the fact that it's an action game versus more of a pure isometric CRPG. But the reviews dropped, and ultimately pretty positive. 84 on Metacritic, mostly positive. On Steam, seems to be getting off to a good start, and in so many ways it feels like a win for BioWare, a studio that may have been in danger of closing, frankly, if they had not been able to actually release this game. Liana, you reviewed it for IGN.com, and you gave it a very positive review. Your thoughts, please.
Yeah, I mean, I've been a fan of the series going all the way back to Origins. I think Origins is still probably one of my favorite games of all time. And I definitely went into Veilguard with like a completely neutral expectations. I was like, if this is a huge disaster, it won't surprise me. And if it's really great, it won't surprise me. And it ended up kind of exceeding all of my expectations. I think
E for exceeds expectations.
Exactly. Yeah. I think the companion writing and the way that the companion quests are structured in particular was really good. Where it kind of feels like they each get their own little game rather than just like a side mission where you go deal with some individual part of their pathos. Like you might see in other RPGs, you know, it feels like they all have a character arc, and like this could have been like a Dragon Age side game, just like about Lucanus or whatever, and they kind of have a moment at the end that feels really satisfying, and like they get to be the hero of their own story. And yeah, I mean the in terms of like, I don't want to be like too jumping all over the place, but I was very, very critical of Dragon Age 2 when it came out. I mean, I was 2021, I think, or maybe. And
Good age.
I really felt like that scene from I Think You Should Leave, where it's like, this is a betrayal on levels that no one has ever seen. Like, that's how I felt about Dragon Age 2 at the time. But I've gone through like the full 5 stages of grief and arrived at acceptance, where I'm like, Baldur's Gate 3 exists. That's always going to be my shit. I'm fine with Dragon Age being an action RPG right now. And it's a pretty good action RPG. It's not like Inquisition, where I felt like it was trying to be both and failing at both. So, that's kind of my overall take on it.
Fun to play, right? It's
Yeah,
I'm playing as a warrior, a sword and board warrior. I don't know what class you were, Len.
I did the Spellblade.
Oh,
Everybody
cool,
who's been
cool.
playing
Yeah, so you're a
Spellblade
mage.
has been really liking it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I've been a warrior, and flaming weapons, sword and board, very satisfying to play on a moment-to-moment basis. I like rotating through all of the different companions. They're all interesting in their own right, and generally speaking, I mean, it's a little goofy at times. Everything about this game is a little goofy at times, but on a moment-to-moment basis, it's really fun, and I'm consistently pleasantly surprised every time I boot it up. And I'm like, this game looks great. This game's fun to play.
Hey,
This is
game
like,
didn't kick me in the face when I loaded.
this is cool. Yeah. I think it makes a lot of really good decisions too. Like no DRM, very polished. Like a lot of the stuff that would derail other games, become huge talking points, just don't exist with this one.
It's so so well polished for a game that was kind of in development hell for like 8 years too.
Yeah.
Like,
Got rebooted twice.
Yeah.
Twice.
Yeah. And I think they're
Crazy.
especially in the first act, like right up until you make the first kind of big story decision, that's where I can feel that, like, okay, this, like, there's a lot of rewrites that happened here. Like, up until that point, it feels like kind of like the game doesn't really know where it's going yet. But then, it kind of gets on track after that. So, yeah.
Eric, what do you think?
I am a little bit cooler than I expected to be coming out of that preview. I think y'all will remember that I came out of that preview and I was looking forward to what this game was going to be. I definitely think a lot of my takeaways from it still hold true. This is very much like, it's exciting to see BioWare making a BioWare game again. It's really, really cool to see that. I love that this game has so much of the spirit of not just, Dragon Age 2, but Mass Effect 2 and stuff in there. I think there is a lot of Mass Effect 2 in this game.
Yes.
Like an alarming amount. And I'm trying to figure out how to say this. Like, because I think if I had to sit down and give it a number, that would be the hardest thing to do, right? Is like, what number would I put on this? Because I am enjoying my time with it. I've been like slowly 100%ing it. I'm not done with it yet. I'm at like hour 60, I think. You put in like maybe 5 hours for idle time in there, but like I've been trying to like 100% it as much as I can. And I think there are parts of it that really, really work for me. The build crafting, the fact that you like Rook, the way you build your Rook feels so good in this game. And
Skill
the action
trees are actually really unexpectedly good. They could have been really bad, honestly, but they're enjoyable to navigate for sure.
Like that stuff feels great. I think the actual cast of characters is really compelling and interesting. But there's also just a lot of stuff in there that feels like it's a little, I don't know if bloated's the right word, but like really bogged down at times by things I don't think it needed to get bogged down in. I was talking before the pod about last night I was playing and a companion wanted to go, oh, hey, like I've got an exclamation point. Let's go talk. And I'm like, cool, let's talk. Hey, I got to go do this thing. Let's go to Arlathan. I'm like, cool. All right. Open the menu, fast travel to Arlathan, go to their quest marker, talk to them, do their quest where you're walking around, you're kind of picking up stuff. Maybe you fight some enemies. You're done. Cool, go back to the lighthouse, which is kind of your Normandy, your campfire, your hub base. And once again, sitting there with an exclamation point over their head, and I'm like, cool, what's up? And they're like, oh, I want to talk to you. but not here. Let's go to Arlithan. I was like, we were just there. We were literally
I was
just
there in Arlithan.
And so we go and we talk, and I'm like, cool. We had our conversation. I don't know why you couldn't just like tell me you wanted to talk, and even if you wanted to go to Arlithan, I could just hit a button and we just do, because it's a dialogue. It's a cut scene essentially where you make some dialogue choices, but like ultimately you're just having a chat. There's a lot of those in this game, and then I go back to the lighthouse, and guess who has an exclamation point over their head again, because they want to talk in a different area. And like it's a little maddening, and it's only happening because I'm doing this to myself, but like I do think there's a degree of you talk a lot in this game. There's a lot of dialogue in this game, even for a BioWare game. Even for like by their own metric, there is a lot of companion stuff. There's a lot of like conversations between them. And I think if you like that, you're gonna really enjoy it. But I think even if you do enjoy it, there is such a thing as too much of a good thing. And I think that's wearing on me a little bit, is that there's just a lot of character moments all the time, and I almost wish there was like just a cutoff point of like just 10% less. Like just find the ones that you don't need to keep and just really think about which ones matter, and really sit there, because there's just a little bit too much where it's getting to the point where I'm like, we just had like 4 heart-to-hearts in a row and I can't, like, compared to a Mass Effect 2 where like you have really meaningful conversations with your companions, but there's maybe like 4 or 5 of them spread out over the game. This one, it's like 10, and then there's like ones that happen between the companions where you settle conflict. None of the conflicts in here really have had those like Jack and Miranda moments like from Mass Effect 2 where they're like, I'm going to kill you, or like Tali and Legion. It's more like, I think this, and the other person disagrees, and you have to be like, okay, let's mediate this. I think that's kind of where the game is. One place where it's falling a little short for me. The other place is that I think some of the enemy variety and bosses and stuff could use just a little zhuzh up a little bit, because you're doing really cool stuff as Rook. It feels really cool. Like I built my Rook, and I found out some busted thing where like the final attack of my combo is breaking the damage limit in this game. It's literally hitting 9999. I didn't know this was a thing until I started noticing that I was like, every time I finished a combo, it popped up with like all 9s, and I was like, that's crazy. And I just
some Final Fantasy shit right there.
Yeah.
And I managed to like pick all these things that created it, so I was just like doing bonkers damage on the last hit of my combo every time. But that's really cool. But then the enemies are just kind of like, some of them are fun to fight, some of them are interesting to fight. Other ones, I don't like the shield dudes. They get kind of boring after 20 hours. A lot of the enemies just kind of start to grow old after a while, or you see the same boss over and over again, but it's kind of like God of War, where it's like, oh, I fought this boss like many times, and now you've just kind of put like a little variation on it, but it's the same boss again. That happens a lot in this game. So when a good like a new fresh boss shows up, that's really exciting. That's really fun, because now I'm like, oh, I get to think about how this character fights, how I need to deal with them. The most fun I had with this combat system was actually fighting enemies that were like 20 levels over me.
Yes, absolutely.
I cannot recommend it enough, because you can get to stuff early on that you should not be able to get to. And so I was fighting like level 30 enemies at like level 15 or 16 or something like that. And it's actually,
I wasn't able to do like any
do.
damage to them. When I ran into a level 30 enemy, and I couldn't do anything to them. I was just kind of bouncing off them.
You gotta slowly whittle them down. You gotta like pick at them until they're dead, and it is actually very enjoyable to do. You will get extremely overpowered and be able to breeze through the back half of this game. Let me tell you.
Sounds
but
like the Peninsula of Power in the original Final Fantasy, where there was kind of a programming glitch where there was an area, a block of land that was separated by a stream, but the very tip of the bottom half of the kind of separated area, like, was somehow got caught into the programming, so that would be, the same as the harder enemies on the other side of the bridge. On the other side of the stream. So people would go there like very early in the game and fight these enemies that were like way over leveled. And if you could do it, because it wasn't easy, you were just kind of like, oh, well, rest of the game's kind of a breeze, at least until the back half.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I do think if you hit that point, bumping it up to underdog I think the default difficulty is called Adventurer. But if you go up to the Underdog difficulty, it's more like enemies 5 to 10 levels ahead of you feel good versus they have to be like 15 to 20 levels ahead of you to feel like a good challenge.
Interesting.
So I like that difficulty better than the default one.
Do we want to do like a
what's
quick...
what's a above average restaurant that you can an above average chain restaurant that you can think of?
Above average
McDonald's.
chain restaurant?
No, so I put
restaurant.
Olive Garden as squarely average only because of the breadsticks. So what's above the Olive Garden line?
Do you guys have like Ruby Tuesday near you? That's always one where it's like, okay, it's better than like Chili's or Applebee's, but it's not like fine dining.
Well, hold on. Applebee's and Chili's are not on the same tier because I would go to a Chili's over an Applebee's.
See, by me, the Applebee's is way better than the Chili's, but it could have a lot to do with the franchise owners.
In the chat, we have Macaroni Grill, Longhorn Steakhouse.
Longhorn
We don't have any of
Steak.
these in
Wait,
Canada.
Texas Roadhouse. That's an above average.
I have been to
chain
a
restaurant.
Roadhouse when I was in the
A
South.
Texas Roadhouse is a good time.
The reason
We
I
don't
was
have these.
mentioning
I
it
think
was...
that. Sorry, go ahead.
Go
Gavin.
ahead. No, you
I was
go
gonna
ahead.
say,
man.
like, I think a lot of these used to exist in Canada, but then they all just kind of pulled out because we're the first to be cut when there was any sort of financial problems. I've been in Olive Garden in decades.
Huh.
The reason I mentioned it was the thought that I had was going to Olive Garden and thinking, these breadsticks are really good. Like, it's like a perfectly enjoyable time. I think Dragon Age is better than Olive Garden, but what's like the next step up? It's not exactly fine dining in terms of RPG, but there's a lot of it. It'll fill you up. You're still eating.
Yeah.
Oh, Golden Corral. Is it
The
Golden
decor
Corral?
is really good.
No, Golden Corral is a different thing entirely. Like Golden Corral is like the Disgaea of restaurants, all right, where you're like
Wow.
you're
I
just
wouldn't go there, but-
like consumption is the point when you are
Gluttony.
in there. Yeah.
Oh man.
Dragon Age
that's
is better
how-
than Olive Garden. Box quote says Ken.
The back of the box quote. It is better than Olive Garden.
It is better than Olive Garden. Yeah.
What's the Olive Garden of 2024? I ask you. What? I mean, it's
Yukon?
sitting at squarely at 84. That's like above average.
That's
Fine.
okay. That's very
That's good.
respectable.
I
I
wanted
would
to
even
say
say it's good.
Rebirth.
But here's the other thing about Veilguard
Cake
is,
Factory.
and I know Ken kind of agrees with me on this, but it would be like if you went to like a nicer sit down restaurant and then they brought out the dessert and it was like somebody brought it in from like a Michelin star place. Like you have to get to the end to fully there's Ken agreeing with me in the chat.
I have heard that. Friend of the
yeah.
show, Normandy co-host Ken Shepard is very adamant that the ending of this game really does a lot to like lift it as a whole. And so I am curious because like I would say probably about like 5/8 of the way through the game, maybe 3/4 of the way through the game. And I definitely feel like things are coming into focus in a way that feel a little bit more solid. Because I also like we haven't really like talked top down about what this game is, but you're playing as Rook, who is the new hero of Dragon Age. Every Dragon Age rolls a new hero for the person, you know, very D&D-esque. But like Rook is kind of it's interesting. They like basically pose them as like you are the new person who has to do the Dragon Age protagonist things. It feels like the game is very cognizant of the fact that like every once in a while somebody's got to step up and be the hero of this world, and it like very pointedly like points at you as like you're the hero now. And I think the early points with Rook are a little rough because you kind of just get told how awesome Rook is. You get told that Rook has this incredible backstory, but you don't really get to see a lot of that until you get deeper into the game. So I think the more familiar you get with that character, the more you get to kind of create stories of your own that can then be back referenced later on, the more it starts to feel like it's your journey. And I think that's where games like Baldur's Gate 3 or even Dragon Age Origins that we talked about earlier, like kind of handle like acquainting you with your character a little bit better. But as the story goes on, you know, we talked about Solus, the antagonist, quote unquote, from Trespasser and Inquisition from the previous game, kind of gets put to the side as the elven gods are unleashed from the Fade, and Elgernon and Gillenane are kind of back. They're bringing back the blight. They want to take over the world. They're evil. We got to kill gods. And I think it's fairly compelling. The designs of, especially Gillenane. I love Gillenane as a design, like just terrifying. She is this like obviously twisted and morphed like sorceress who is just like, what if Maleficent got really into tentacles? And it's terrifying. I love it. It's very very good.
It's kind of a rush down of like all of the meta plot elements that were set into place by Origins. Like Origins is the fifth blight, and it's like, all right, we defeated the fifth blight. How many archdemons are left? I guess that's going to be the franchise for the indefinite future. Now they're like, no, we're just gonna throw everything out there. This is, we're just gonna break the lock, and now we're gonna wrap that all up in one story. So
it does really feel, without saying too much, like BioWare set out to kind of wrap up a lot of lingering lore threads in this game, and I think I would have to spoiler cast to talk about some of this to a deeper level. I think some of that stuff gets tied together in knots that I'm not exactly wild about, just because I don't think everything has to be interconnected in a fantasy universe.
It's a little too neat. I think.
But what I will say is that some of the ways in which it interconnects, and specifically how some things do interconnect, is really like exciting and interesting to see, and really revitalizing to see as a like Dragon Age fan, to see them deal with this stuff. And it does kind of feel like they're setting up for kind of a like world reset where they can say maybe not like everything's like cut off, this is a new world going forward, but like they're kind of creating almost a lore Bible, like almost kind of a like blueprint moving forward for like what the Dragon Age world looks like and how it could be codified to have like more stuff, more stories be told other than like what it's been kind of centered on in the past. And I kind of like that. I think that's really interesting because it gives me the hope that there could be more stuff like Dragon Age 2, which is still like an incredibly novel take on Dragon Age, and on a fantasy world in general, like moving forward. But yeah, that's kind of like the top down, you go, you recruit your team. It's very Mass Effect 2 in that way. It's you're building the squad to kill the god. You need a god slayer, so you go get the god slayer out of their prison, and that is like maybe one of the best levels in the game. It's absolutely incredible. You need a dragon killer because there are dragons in the mix. You need somebody who understands the Fade, so you go get a Fade expert who is this Vincent Price looking dude. That I thought I was not going to like Emmerich. I really like Emmerich. I think he's great. I think especially the stuff they do with one of his missions that has a very campy take on like camera angles, and it feels like you're watching a Vincent Price movie is very, very fun.
Did you get to Luigi's Mansion yet?
Yeah, that's the one. That's the one.
Yeah, it's so like it's subtle enough that it's not like parody, but like that mission is Luigi's Mansion. It's kind of funny. It's
very fun. It has fun with its concepts. It kind of even like knowingly pokes and prods at what it's doing to like say like, oh, we know we're getting into some stuff. We've got this dude who looks like Vincent Price and is a necromancer, so we're gonna have fun with that. Like we're gonna do some interesting things with that, but then also tell a really good story in the process. And I think that's where BioWare is like really hitting those heights.
I like Tosh a lot better than I thought I would. They're a Canary treasure hunter who can breathe fire and is very deadpan in the delivery. And they're kind of fun to pair up with Ballara, who is a very manic pixie dream elf.
She's a Zoomer fangirl,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And there's one of those in every single Dragon Age, I swear to God. But they have good interplay and good conversations, and Ballara's... The moments when Ballara gets more serious-minded and actually starts quizzing Tosh on what exactly it means to be a treasure hunter in Elven ruins and stuff like that is actually pretty good, I think. So, and actually, I think low-key one of Dragon Age's strengths is the way that it not only connects up the different characters and has them interacting with one another, but also how it incorporates your backstory and what you did into the dialogue, into the choices, into a lot of different beats of the game, which is not easy to do. So my character is a shadow dragon. I hate slavers, apparently, and I'm from Minrathous. And not only do people bring that up all the time, it's like, you're a shadow dragon. You used to be a shadow dragon. You did all of this stuff. But also me being from Minrathous ended up having some weight in one of the decisions that I ended up making. And there's some actually interesting decisions with real consequences for the entire game that I think are handled extremely well. And I promise I'm taking Dragon Age on its own merits here, but when I looked at Baldur's Gate 3, one thing was I didn't always have a great feel for who my character was. They were almost like a blank slate bouncing off all of the other characters. And the last light in wasn't a great choice to me. It felt like a choice that there's only one choice, and if you did the other one, it was because you were being deliberately evil. And in this one, I think this game does opportunity cost better than Baldur's Gate 3.
So yeah, one thing I do want to say about that is, like, I had a conversation recently where we were talking about, you know, are there evil choices in a BioWare game? Because I think if you look at Baldur's Gate 3 is a great example. Owlcat Games, Pathfinder, also very good examples of, like, times where you can play a very, very, like, evil character, like a D&D evil character, like a lich or something like that, right? Where you can just do outright evil things. The Dark Urge in Baldur's Gate 3, if you really want to lean into just playing a villain, you can play a villain. And that wide openness does mean that there's a lot of room for you to, like, define a character in an interesting way. But the trade-off is that, like, I think some of the definition there, especially how it affects the journey, how it affects the world around you, has to give way, because you can't always predict that stuff. You have to think, like, this is a game, right? Like, this is, you developers, I'm sorry to any game devs that are listening to this and being like, oh my god, he's armchair game deving right now. but like, I love to think about the way that, like, developers have to basically create the pathways for which we will role play going forward. You have to think about that narrative design moving forward, how players are going to move through that space, what sort of things are you know, possible to flag as options and world states that you can add, while also having it reflect, like, who the player thinks they are and who they are trying to role play. And so, like, in Dragon Age, and I would say BioWare games at large, especially Mass Effect and Dragon Age, like, you are a hero. That is an changeable fact. You will be the hero of this story. You cannot be evil. Like Baldur's Gate 3 just added all those endings where you can do, like, some really messed up stuff, because that is a game that allows you to be the villain if you want to be the villain. But I do think BioWare games have to, like, to some degree, let you be the hero. You just kind of be an anti-hero, right? Like, you be if you're a Paragon, you're kind of like the upstanding good guy cop, and then if you're the renegade, you're the bad guy space cop. You're the Jack Bauer space cop, but like, you're still space cop at the end of the day. But I say this because what it lets BioWare do is, like, it really lets them mold the story a bit more around, like, okay, we know that you're going to be on this side, you're going to be siding with these factions versus this faction and stuff like that, so we can add a lot more choices and ideas around that stuff. I do think it works for BioWare. I think it's fine that BioWare isn't letting you, like, do the most evil shit possible. It doesn't need to.
No blood magic. That was one of the talking points. People were mad because you couldn't do blood magic in this one.
It is weird you can't do blood magic, because we're into Tevinter. Like, when in Tevinter, do some blood magic. But
I do think there's sort of a, like, you could look at, like, Baldur's Gate 3, where I definitely agree that the main character, Tav, whatever, is, unless you're playing Dark Urge, is kind of the least interesting person in the party. Like, it is kind of a blank slate. Then you have something like Mass Effect, where I think Shepard is a pretty well-defined character, but I also felt like I had a fair amount of say in who that character was, and maybe a lot of it was illusory, but I did feel like, you know, my Shepard was distinctly my Shepard. Rook, I think, is a pretty well-defined character in the way that Shepard is, but I didn't feel like I had a lot of say over what kind of character Rook was.
I feel like the most that you get is in how you kind of respond to stuff. You get like the Dragon Age 2. I couldn't tell. I've been trying to figure out if it has the DA2 tech where it's like if you respond with like sarcasm. I don't know why I said that word that way. That really just bothered me. Sarcasm. So if you respond with sarcasm often enough, like your character will become kind of snarky by like default. Like that will become the way they respond. Because that was the thing with Dragon Age 2 is if you're snarky Hawk often enough, then Hawk just is a snarky character even when you're not making dialogue choices. But I keep picking Snark, and also everyone else I know keeps picking Snark. So I feel like all of our Rooks are just snarky Hawk again. So I'm glad that Hawk's back. It's great to have Hawk back.
My Rook is very straightforward. I always pick the angry dialogue choice.
Oh, the like arms crossed, like
arms crossed. The thing with Rook is they have two poses. One is the arms down by the side, and the other is like hands at the hips all the time. And
are all Dragon Age heroes named after birds? Hawk, Rook.
Rook. Oh, I didn't think about that. Well, the hero of Ferelden is just called the hero of Ferelden.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and then the Inquisitor is just called the Inquisitor.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Nadia, listening to all of this, I forget. Have you played a Dragon Age? And would you play a Dragon Age? Would you play this Dragon Age?
The first one for a while, and the thing is, I would give this one a try, but there is so much out there right now that I'm just far more interested in. So, it's on the backlog, but not the serious backlog, the one they say you'll get to Sunday before you die, but you know you're never going to get to it. Hooray for Dragon Age.
Yeah, I am playing it, and I intend to finish it. It's just one of those situations where I have a lot of games that I'm just kind of rotating through at the moment, and it's hard to, like I said last week, I think it's like I have a couple of multiple ice cream cones, and I'm like, this flavor is delicious. I love this one. Oh, I got this one too. This is great. So,
as a Midwesterner, did you ever have Superman ice cream?
No.
Okay, because I once heard that we had this really gross, disgusting combination, we probably still do, of ice cream that's like blueberry sherbet, lemon sherbet, and like some kind of red sherbet.
Yeah.
And like I just read somewhere that in the Midwest and in like parts of Canada, it's known as Superman ice cream. So I don't know if you had that. All I know is that when I was a janitor at a mall, kids would always get that stupid ice cream and drop it, and it would turn to like the most disgusting gray sludge you've ever seen in your life.
Bonus pit. No, we had the Sonic ice cream with the bubblegum nose.
Oh, the eyes, the disgusting eyes.
The bubblegum eyes, and very popular. That's what Sonic X Shadow Generations is. If Dragon Age is it's the very above average restaurant with the Michelin star dessert, then Sonic X Shadow Generations is the ice cream truck shadow ice cream cone.
And what I played of it is pretty cute. Like I've been watching my husband play the shadow content, and
I can hear Ken
reading.
typing in the chat right now. Like I can hear the furious
typing
clacks
so
of the keys.
hard.
Yeah.
Bang, bang, bang.
I do think it's worth shouting out that I think it's really cool how Dragon Age the Veilguard handles trans identity, and it's very BioWare. It's classical BioWare. They've always tried to be kind of progressive on representing queer identities, and they haven't always been successful. See games like Mass Effect 2 for one reason or another, but how it allows the main character to identify as transgender is really effing cool, in my opinion. And trans people have had a terrible year in the year 2024.
You don't say. Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
It's been a bad couple years. And so seeing a game that reflects trans identities in a really compassionate way, a big budget AAA game, that's really cool. And it's worth shouting out and praising. I think it's really special.
I want to call out specifically, and again, I'm going to do like a very complex dance around spoilers here, but there is a companion character in Dragon Age the Veilguard who goes through some gender realizations, and there's a specific note that you find. There's all these little codex notes, like in any other BioWare game. That's them kind of like walking through how they're going to tell their family about this. And there's a line where it's like, I've been talking to my friends in Minrathous, and then it's crossed out and it's like, do not say Teventer, do not mention Teventer. Like the idea that like if my family gets in their heads that I got these ideas from the big city and from the Teventer and the Shadow Dragons, they're going to dismiss it out of hand because that's all, woke, mind poisoning or whatever. I really liked that specific beat. That felt very authentic to me.
The game with the courage of its convictions, and you don't see that very often in a big budget game, and that's pure BioWare right there. The BioWare, one way or another, has always had the courage of its convictions, so I say good job. And not surprisingly, the grifters have been grifting pretty hard around it. There was some real nonsense around the individual reviews, fake review guidelines.
That
going
shit was
around.
Funny as hell. Scribbled in crayon, please no be mean.
Oh my god. With the text cursor still there.
Oh my god.
People to just become adults. Someday you'll become adults. I don't know. I'm tired of talking about like stuff like children. You gotta grow up sometime.
You gotta grow up sometime. Then we all play video games for a living. We don't grow up. No growing up. But
you can grow up and play video games. You can be an adult who plays video games.
It's true. No, and we are all adults who are playing video games, but we are kids. We are young at heart.
We're actually out here playing the video games when a lot of the people screaming about them are just too busy tweeting online, being mad about stuff to actually play a damn video game. So
here's the thing, though. The game came out online. It got solid reviews. The last time I checked, it was doing fine on Steam. It had mostly positive reviews. It was not getting review bombed. It was just this video game came out and everybody went, huh, okay, it's good. Yeah, I'm enjoying it.
It's the same thing that's happened with like most of the games that have come out that have been a focal point of this. Like Black Myth Wukong comes out, people talk about it, their criticisms, their like praise, it comes out, like reviews are out, there you go, that's it, that's end of the day. Like same thing happened with a bunch of other games that have happened this year, but it just turns into like there is a cottage industry of people who make their entire existence and profit off of just screaming about things that you should be angry about. You, the viewer at home, should be angry about, like they're on network or something. And it's like, it doesn't do anything for me. I'd rather watch somebody like who has played a game and wants to talk about the game itself and the text itself and actually like approach it with some good faith criticism or good faith stuff. I thought like if you want like it actually like good take on why you might not like Veilguard, I thought Skill Up did a good video. Like as somebody who like if you want kind of a counterpoint.
They didn't like the writing.
Yeah. And I think I personally have issues with some of the writing in this game, if you want me to be frank. I have some weird stuff. This is like BioWare, like to not delve too deep, but like BioWare has a weird thing about idiosyncrasies and like putting not even necessarily like terminology, but like people speak Spanish in Dragon Age the Veilguard. And it's weird to me because Spain doesn't exist in Thedas. And I'm like, why is this character speaking Spanish in this moment when, like, I think it's cool when you use that fantasy setting to, like, I love it when the characters use Elvish terms. And suddenly, like, oh, this is adding to the lore a little bit. And there's just, BioWare's always kind of done that where, like, it was in Inquisition as well. Sometimes there's weird little idiosyncrasies where characters speak languages that wouldn't make sense if you like tried to logic it out a little bit, but that's just kind of the world they've made and the writing that they do. And so like some of it is a little weird, some of it bothers me, other parts I'm like, oh whatever, like we'll let that go, it's just kind of a funny joke.
I think some of it is in the delivery. My understanding is that Dragon Age the Veilguard was actually a pretty like short turnaround recording sesh for the most part, and there's some deliveries that are, I think, actually pretty stilted, which doesn't help the lines, because dialogue can be just really cheesy, but if you have a great actor who's given the time to really put together a good take, they can turn it into magic. I always go back to Babylon 5, one of my favorite shows from the mid-1990s, where some of the actors were so let in and so bad, and they just could not do anything with that very flowery dialogue, and some, like Peter Jurassic, were amazing. And I think the Veilguard is somewhat variable in that as well. Some of the actors seem to struggle a little bit with this fairly flowery dialogue, and it comes off as a little bit cringe. And some do really, really well with it. Just to shout out some like positives, I think the actor who did Lucanus, pretty good actually. I like Lucanus. I like Tosh. I think Nev is ultimately like pretty good as well. I think the rooks are a little weird. If I'm being totally honest, I'm playing as a girl rook with the North American accent.
Yeah.
I think the thing with the rook is that it's all over the place. Like my rook will be very serious sometimes and very cold and harsh, but then sometimes a little goofy. And so I think all of those different tonalities are a little jarring to me at times.
I did really like Emmerich. I mean, he's clearly doing a bit, but it's a bit that I like.
He commits to the bit.
Ballara is another one where, like, okay, if I'm talking to a friend who's like 10 or 15 hours into the game and says, I think Ballara is annoying, I'm like, wait until you get to some of her personal quests, though, because she, I think, gives some of the best emotional performances in the entire thing. I also... what was the other one I was going to shout out? I slipped my mind now. I do think they do a good job of avoiding the like, they fly now. Yeah. Like, I didn't feel like it got to that level of cheese, or if it did, it was kind of used sparingly. I think that's a narrative that a lot of people have latched onto, that like, oh, this sounds like a Joss Whedon show, or this sounds like a Marvel movie.
It turns into a CinemaSins thing, right? Where it's like quip, ding in the corner, and it's like that's not really like a great way to analyze anything.
Well, and like legitimately, I think they avoided that. They might have avoided it narrowly, but I think for the most part, they did avoid falling into that sort of tone. From my perspective,
the serious moments work.
Yeah.
And the quippy moments or the lighter moments are mixed.
Yeah. I was going to say the female British rook sounds like somebody who like grew up in Yorkshire but then moved, and it's like the Northern English comes back a little bit during certain lines, which is kind of interesting if that's what they were going for.
Pretty funny.
Yeah. But it does vary in terms of like, wait, where is this accent supposed to be from? It seems like it changes from line to line a little bit. Right.
There was a moment playing last night where you have like revives that you can get on companion equipment. So where like if you go down and you get a defeat screen, you can hit the button and they'll come over and like give you a health potion and get you back up. And I did one last night where like my rook is romancing Nev. And by the way, the Nev romance, incredibly well written, like very, very good. But at some part in it, they kind of nickname each other. I don't want to give it away because it's really a fun surprise what happens, but like I had never heard it used as a nickname until that moment where I went down in battle, and all of a sudden like I hit the revive button and Nev comes over and like says it like, oh, get on back up, and then like says the nickname, and I was like and I was like, that was that like, I think that moment where I call it the Shadowheart moment now, because there's a moment where you're romancing Shadowheart in BG3 and you come back to camp and she says something like, oh, I missed seeing you, and it was like, that's that little like got me kicking my feet and shit. Like that's giggling and stuff on the other side of the screen. Like when they can nail that moment, like the writing's good. I think it may not have like consistent peaks, but I think it is hitting peaks, and that is really good. But that's kind of like my point broadly, is that I want to go listen to people who want to have these actual like discussions and critiques of these games, and not just like pull a 5-second clip to scream about on social media or whatever and have Elon Musk reply. But like, I don't like the level design in this game. Some God of War stuff. Okay.
I hate hitting crystals.
Yes.
I don't like it. It's very contrived. Don't like it. Sorry. This is.
Sir, don't like
I think it's legitimate to. It's not just a personal taste thing. I think it's lazy level design. When it really takes you out of the moment. It's just filler material. It's very brain dead, and it's essentially time wasting in a video game. And it just looks bad to have crystals floating around an area, and you gotta hit them so that you can open up the thing and go through the thing. And be better level designers. That's all I'm saying.
It annoys me that you basically do it double over because the Darkspawn boils are the same thing. It's the exact same setup. It's just they look cosmetically different, but it's still the same idea of like follow the line back to the one that you can hit and then hit them all to like unlock the door. But it also makes it feel weird because I'm like, does everybody just have Venatory blood crystals now? Everybody's just rolling around with like pockets full of these things to just set up weird doors and stuff like that. And that's kind of...
I think that in a good dungeon crawl, there can be traps, there can be surprises, there can be dead ends, there can be surprising monsters that come and get you. It can feel like a good dungeon should feel like how should I describe it? Not a marathon, but where you're constantly on the edge of death and you're stressed out, and then you get to the fire and you're like, thank God, okay, I made it. Deep breath. And you keep delving deeper and deeper and deeper. Obviously, Mines of Moria is a classic example of a great dungeon crawl. And Dragon Age the Veilguard gets in its head about, well, you can't just have combat. You have to solve these puzzles, too. And open the door. It's not interesting.
I think what's really missing, if I'm going to like critique this really like, directly, is that I hate to say that I think a really good dungeon does need a gimmick of some kind, like something. It doesn't necessarily need to be like something flashy or anything, just something that like sets it apart from other dungeons, because you even look at like other BioWare games and like Mass Effect 2, again, I keep going back to it because it is like a very similar game to this game. Those companion missions had like very interesting little moments where it's like, oh, I need to run through this battlefield to get to the other side, but the sunlight damages my shields when I do that. So I need to be careful about where I'm standing, because if I'm in the sun, my shields will get depleted. Or the entire like Legion Geth consensus mission where you're kind of doing this tower defense to like deal with the Geth that are trying to stop you from getting into the server and stuff like that. Those are really interesting missions because they just give you like a little bit more to deal with than the average dungeon. And here in Veilguard, I think aesthetically, a lot of the missions are really compelling, but they don't do a lot with the like actual thing that you're doing there to like just add that little extra wrinkle of gameplay. Instead, it's like very like it looks really different. I think there's some gorgeous dungeons. I said the ossuary earlier. The Lucanus recruitment mission is incredible. It's fantastic. One of Davrin's early companion quests is also very memorable. Has maybe one of my favorite cutscenes in this game. It's fantastic.
The ossuary was. I think I know what you're talking about. God, that was such a video gamey level.
Yeah, but
when
it's
this
cool.
game gets video gamey.
Yeah, I didn't really mind the puzzles. I feel like it's like you need something to break up. Like if this game is 90% fighting and talking, I think fighting, running, and talking, you can kind of run into like the Final Fantasy 14 problem where it feels like I'm either watching a cutscene or running to the next cutscene a lot of the time.
But if you craft a dungeon that is focused around exploration and atmosphere and good writing that ties in directly into the story and the character beats and isn't just some backdrop that you get through, then it can be a really compelling experience.
I agree.
That's all I'm saying.
I mean, partly it's that I was so exhausted by the open world design in Inquisition and Mass Effect Andromeda that I was like, this feels like KOTOR. This is old school BioWare. I'm glad to be back to this. It is missing sort of that increasing peril of a dungeon thing that like the Deep Roads and Origins, or
Yeah.
even the Descent DLC for Inquisition, which I thought was really good. There's not quite. They try to do that a couple times, but just like the way the save system works and the way the resource system works doesn't really sell it. Of I'm getting deeper in and things are getting more and more mysterious and dangerous.
Or even
So
like
From
this,
Software works because its dungeons are built on vibes and a sense of persistent and constant danger. And you're running around going, this is gorgeous. Wow, I'm in so much danger right now. Oh my God, what is that? It's coming after me. Run, 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 run. Oh, thank God I made it to a fire. And you don't see them putting freaking crystals in to do traversal puzzles that are nonsense, that are just time wasters.
Maybe it's because I've been playing it for the retro stream, but I think like FF6 is also like one of those games that I think I'm just always going to think back to in terms of dungeon design, because like several dungeons in that game have like really stuck with me. Like the Zone Eater is one that really stuck out to me, or like the Cultist Tower, which we just finished on stream not long ago, but like that was an incredible way of just taking something that is extremely basic. Like you're just climbing a tower to get to the top, but they say like, okay, in this area you can only use magic, like that's it, and you have to think about what that means for what you're going to do, how you can get around it. You start doing really interesting things with your party composition to address it. And I do think, to bring in another critique of Veilguard that I personally don't like, at the end of the day, I don't like that your party members are not really active in what you're doing. They're kind of like cooldown meters in this game, because they can't, if they can go down, I have not seen them go down, so I don't think they have health bars.
No,
I don't think they have health bars. But also, so really you also just kind of like either direct them to attack, which is kind of a frustrating mechanic in and of itself, because there are certain pieces of equipment that will only activate bonuses if you tell them to attack a target, and so you have to like keep doing that over the course of a battle to keep proccing those benefits, which is a little annoying to me. But you also just have like different abilities, and the way the abilities can interact with you is really cool, but they end up feeling like just additional abilities on your wheel that are just kind of there, and they can do some stuff, and they can kind of, you know, hold their own with, say, a basic enemy. You know, I'll be looking over and I'll be fighting like so many dudes at the same time, because I think Rook just naturally draws aggro. But you know, Tosh will be over there just like beating the piss out of one guy.
especially as a light armor mage, where like in some of those battles where you have to kill the boils so the darkspawn will stop respawning. I feel like I am the glass cannon, and I'm the only person on my team in Overwatch who's doing the objective. And I'm like, Davrin, you gotta get some of these guys off. Like, at least some of them. Like, I'm getting killed out here, man.
You like have to get. I'm playing a warrior, so I don't mind it. But I imagine if you're playing like one of the more DPS classes, that you need like a Davrin to just taunt the enemies or something to get them off of you. But the thing I don't like about that is it ends up like Rook feels really good to play, but then the companions don't really feel like they're present or doing much, and even their like itemization doesn't feel as interesting, because like I spend time looking at my build and thinking about how I could use this thing and this thing and this thing and combine with all the stuff I have in my skill tree to make this really cool fun build that's really interesting and plays off of my strengths, and I love that. I think this game does that incredibly well. But then you go over to the companions and it's like, well, you can kind of make their abilities a little bit better, and they can wear equipment that just like bumps their numbers up and makes their abilities a little bit better, but they're just kind of like additional stuff. And I think that ultimately then you get to those parts of those dungeon crawls where like you might want to maybe think about what your equipment is or what your companions are doing, and it doesn't really matter at the end of the day, because they're just kind of there to cast their spells and that's it. I think that is where kind of the friction hits a little bit of like, I get to do really cool things as Rook, but some of that stuff that you do think of Dragon Age being, that like tactical, that thinking about where my party is, kind of positioning and things like that, it's really not there. You're just kind of playing a character action game.
Well, we're running out of time talking about Dragon Age for a while. But before we move on, any final thoughts? Liana, final thoughts? wrap it up.
I enjoyed this game a lot. It's like the most fun I've had with a BioWare game in a long time, and I'm happy to have come to a place where I am not expecting Dragon Age to be something that it just isn't anymore, and I can happily enjoy what it is now, which is a very different game from Dragon Age Origins, but you know, it's its own thing, and I've got Baldur's Gate 3, so all is good in the world.
That's a very enlightened take.
Yeah.
I'm kind of glad they didn't go for the CRPG direction, because just based on the size of BioWare and the budget that they would have had, it would have really, really suffered in comparison. I think that it was the right call ultimately to go in maybe actually more of an action adventure direction. It suits the franchise, actually. I think, and there's a lot of ways that it can grow and improve. I mean, this project should have been a total disaster. So the fact that it came out as a pretty polished and enjoyable RPG that has some really special moments, it's a huge win, in my opinion. Eric?
Yeah, I think for the fact that I've been largely like criticizing and stuff here, I am really still enjoying my time with the game. I am like having a good time with it. I'm glad that BioWare is like doing a BioWare game again, frankly. Like that is one of the largest takeaways, is that like this style of game, you don't see a lot of
Would
people.
you say it's a return to form?
Oh my god, no. I didn't sign the crayon scribbling, so but it's god. I'm just glad they're making it again. Like, return to form or not, you know, that carries a lot of connotation with it. A lot of the like BioWare is back is like, what does back mean? But like I think ultimately, like, BioWare has made a game that feels like a BioWare game. Again, not a game that was, like, dictated from on high, not a game that felt like it was mandated by, like, what industry trends are and things like that. This feels like a studio making a game in the style that it is known for, and that's really good. So even though I have criticisms, like, honestly, it's probably a good thing I have criticisms, because I think most Dragon Age games have been divisive over their run. Dragon Age 2, the most infamously, but even other games were like, yeah, like they've all kind of had their like
Dragon Age Origins was very divisive.
Yeah, we've got Ken Shepard, Dragon Age Origins' greatest hater, in our chat right now. So like that's like it's like those games have always kind of. Yeah, no, we could talk about that another day. But like that's I do think ultimately the pivot towards what they did was also the right thing. It does feel very much like a Mass Effect 1 to Mass Effect 2 kind of jump in a lot of ways. I'm sorry I keep using the Mass Effect comparisons, but
it is a BioWare game.
Yeah, and I think that's tangible in a lot of ways, but I think what they've done here is set themselves up for future success. I definitely think, fingers crossed, you can never predict the future in the industry, but I think like BioWare can breathe a little bit easier now, having like released this game and not having it like crash and burn out the gate. Like,
yeah,
you know,
thank God, right?
It's still up on the storefront, so that's great. And
at least until you get to the credits and see that they fired like a third of the people that worked on this.
Yes.
In which case, I don't know that they can really breathe a sigh of relief. I don't know if they want to make any more Dragon Ages, to be honest, but
yeah, it could be.
My big galaxy brain theory.
They sell better than Mass Effect. Just saying.
My big galaxy brain theory is that what Veilguard does is not only set up like potentially future for them to do more stuff, but also potential for like other EA studios to do something within the realm of Dragon Age. It feels like a lot of this like lore codifying like kind of makes it easy for them to say like, this is what our world is, in a way that would make it easier for other teams to come in and kind of play with that subject matter. So like, this isn't me saying like, oh my god, maybe Respawn's gonna make a Dragon Age game, but like, it makes it a little bit easier down the road for something if that were to happen. But even more so, like, I think that BioWare just has like a little bit of that wind in their sails that they have needed as a studio, and that's great. I have my criticisms, I have my praise. Again, I love the characters, I love the world. It looks gorgeous. It is a like really good looking game. I think all the like stylized complaints are like, oh, this looks
great. Yeah,
it's stylized, but also like I think realism is oftentimes a dumb thing to chase in video games, because they date you so fast.
I don't think it's more stylized than Inquisition at all.
No.
They look almost exactly the same to me, except outside of that one trailer that was bad. Like, you know.
Yeah.
it looks better in motion all the time. When you look at
Yeah.
screenshots, you go, this doesn't look that great. But when you're actually playing it, you go, oh, this looks amazing, especially on PC. So
And the world it creates, like the sights you get to see. I love seeing Tevinter. I love seeing Treviso. I love seeing the Rivani coast. I love seeing like all this stuff out there that like we've always kind of heard about in Dragon Age, but now we get to see it and it looks so good. So like, yeah, it's a good game. It is an enjoyable game. I would be surprised if it doesn't make my end of the year list after all is said and done. I have my criticisms, but like I'm just glad that it exists in the form that it does, and I'm having a good time beating it. So really curious to see if that ending really is the big tailwind that everyone keeps talking about. I'm fascinated to see what this looks like.
Yeah, no, as I've said many times, 99 universes out of 100, this game doesn't exist and never ships, or it's a total, utter disaster. So, great to have BioWare back. A return to form, truly. Okay, what do you think, dear listener, of Dragon Age, the Veilguard? Do you like it? Do you not like it? We want to hear from you. Leave a comment, send me an email at cat@bloodgodpod.com, or join our Discord and talk about it. We have a thread going for Dragon Age the Veilguard right now. All right. It's time now for a series of random encounters. Deltarune Chapters 3 and 4 are 100% coming out in 2025. This according to Toby Fox, because we don't have enough games coming out in 2025. We just need some more to add to the pile. Path of Exile 2. Its early access has been delayed by 3 weeks. I think that low-key is a really exciting game, by the way. Sony has shut down Firewalk Studios, thus ensuring that Concord is not coming back. Why should RPG fans care, you ask? Well, live service games, mostly, but it's definitely one of the biggest news items of the week for the industry.
Oh yeah.
PS5 faceplates, they aren't compatible with the PS5 Pro, amazingly. Even though they're the same size, it's the interlocking teeth.
It's the racing
Good old
stripe.
Sony, right?
You gotta keep that racing stripe.
Well, it looks so sharp.
50 million mods have been downloaded in Baldur's Gate 3, including 10,000 of which are naming Wither's Bone Daddy.
Not enough.
Thank you,
Not
Larry.
enough.
God, those are rookie numbers. Got to get those up.
Gotta get those Bone Daddy numbers up.
Mass Effect 5 apparently will not be dabbling with the stylized visuals of Dragon Age. It's gonna stay with photorealistic realism, etc.
Oh,
Okay.
let's go.
This according to Michael Gamble. He's been supportive of Dragon Age Online, to be fair. It was just
Okay.
I was just kind of chuckling a little bit.
He was also out on Twitter asking for games similar to Final Fantasy Tactics. And Mike, if you're listening, you go play that Project Triangle strategy right now. You're gonna have a good time.
There you go.
It's in VR.
You're gonna have a great time.
It's in
Mass
VR
Effect
now.
Tactics. Make Mass Effect
Oh my
Tactics
god.
happen.
I would. Oh my god. I would not be able to
I would
like
play the hell out of that
comprehend
game.
that.
Xenoblade, it's Xenogears, XCOM, but it's actually XCOM, but Mass Effect. Yes, please, with all of the characters, all of the Mass Effect characters, and you're flying around the Norman. Oh my god, you just enunciated my dream game. Holy moly!
I need this to happen. I already got high fantasy Persona, and it was proven. It worked. It's incredible. It's a GOTY contender. So y'all gotta listen to me when I say that Mass Effect Tactics could be a GOTY contender. I can read the tea leaves.
Make it happen, BioWare. And finally, Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition officially announced. I never thought I would see the day. I'm honestly so surprised. It's a big deal for a certain segment of the fandom. Will include added story elements and multiplayer-specific missions. It's releasing March 20th on the Nintendo Switch. If you're not familiar with Xenoblade Chronicles X, that is the more open world one. You can actually customize and create your individual characters. You can zoom around on mechs. Some people would say that it was Breath of the Wild before Breath of the Wild, perhaps.
Ooh.
But it's it's different. It's interesting. Victor Hunter, huge fan. Nobody's happier than Victor Hunter. It's a Victor Hunter-ass game.
Generally, whenever Victor Hunter gets into a game, you're going to get something real weird. And that one real weird thing is what throws everyone off and what he goes for. But actually, Kat, if you remember 2018, I did the interview about Xenoblade Chronicles 2, and this was US Gamer. And we asked Takahashi, will we ever get Xenoblade Chronicles X on the Switch? And he said, probably not. It just costs too much. So that became a pretty popular interview. God, that was a real thing I was doing. I was juggling like two phones. Like, he was in Japan, I had a translator, I had to record. It was just a mess. And I thought this interview was going to be a dog's breakfast. But no, it actually came out really good. And it's happening, GIF.
If you can believe it, this podcast existed when Xenoblade Chronicles X originally came out.
Really? Oh my god.
I think it was maybe the first year of the show, maybe the second. And my recollection is that there's not a game that we ended up really spending a lot of time with.
I didn't.
So there isn't a review of Xenoblade Chronicles X in our archives, despite the fact that we were around when it happened. So, dear listener, what I'm saying is, when this game comes out next March, we will be able to make amends and finally have a Xenoblade Chronicles X review for Axe of the Blood God. Please look forward to it. Okay, we're riding now into the tavern, kicking up next to the fire. We've got a lot to talk about, a lot of games, and actually, I don't want to make this a 2.5 hour episode, so we do need to keep it a little bit chill, but let's get right to it. Nadia, you did get a code for Ys 10, but we're going to table that one until next week. Instead, you're playing another game that is very exciting.
Yes. I have played some of Ys 10. It's fantastic. I will be talking a lot more about it in the coming weeks, but what happened was I unexpectedly got a code for Dragon Quest 3 2D HD, and so I've been kind of playing that, and it's just it's a really, really good remake of what is a classic RPG, if not the quintessential RPG, JRPG rather. And they just did a really good job keeping everything kind of densely compact and easy to traverse, but also just lots of content to kind of get through. New content in particular, like you have the Monster Wrangler, which is a whole new class. Unfortunately, not quite as much fun as doing Beastmaster or even Blue Mage in Final Fantasy. But you do get to find monsters on the overworld and in towns and stuff who will teach you skills and will go fight for you to death in the arena. They come back, don't worry. The graphics are just incredible. I'm playing on the Switch, no problems there. I do want to point out how Dragon Quest 3 has one of the greatest of what we were talking about, I think last week at League of Four, which is the quote-unquote tutorial island. The little bits of land that kind of teach you how to play the game. And Dragon Quest 3 is honestly fantastic. What happens is you wake up, oh, you're the hero, you have to go follow in your father's footsteps because that's just the way it is. And so you start your adventure on a little island, and ultimately your job is to get off the island and start your adventure, but the exit's sealed because blah 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 wars, you can't use the exit basically. So your first mission is to go get the thief's key, which is in the tower, the Dreamer's Tower. And you can see that tower when you leave the castle. Now, the question is, how do you get to the tower? There's 3 ways. There are 2 underground tunnels that will take you there. And there's also, a locked door you can kind of fiddle with if you actually get the thief's key and you want to have, a shortcut. So you are kind of left to do what you need to do on the island, and your missions are there. And how you solve them, that's what you need to learn on that island. You need to learn about how keys work. You need to get the quote-unquote wrecking ball, and that will unseal the shrine that will get you over to the continent, the actual continent where the adventure starts. And in the meantime, you're learning how to fight, you're learning how to use magic, you of course put together your own party. So it's just a really great RPG. I'm looking forward to seeing how people feel about it, because even with the new additions, it just feels like a really kind of brisk experience that if you can turn off markers on where you should go next, but I kind of like playing like that because one of my favorite things about Dragon Quest 3 is it leaves you alone to try things. So yeah, I'm just really impressed with the remake. I will definitely be talking more about it when embargo is up. And let's see, my party is a hero. You can't really change that. Monster Wrangler, Thief. Thief is always great. A little bit of a tip: meet the Metal King in the well in the kingdom, the first where you start off. When you have two mini medals, which you can find pretty easily on the island that you start on, you get the Thorn Whip. Which, if you have a Thief or a Monster Wrangler, they can use the Thorn Whip, and it's really powerful and gets the groups of enemies pretty quickly. So that's right, I have my hero, a Thief, Monster Wrangler, and a Cleric, who I'll probably turn into a Sage when the time comes. So, yeah, great game. Bob's your uncle. Ease 10 is great, too.
I saw the launch trailer for Dragon Quest III HD 2D, and all you have to do to get giant goosebumps for me is to play that Dragon Quest anthem from the Tokyo Metropolitan Symphony Orchestra.
Yeah, that's pretty great.
And just immediately. And I was comparing it to the Star Wars Skeleton Crew trailer. Have you seen this thing?
No, I haven't.
It's like Goonies, but Star Wars.
That's funny.
It was legit one of the worst things I've ever seen.
Oh no, really?
It was terrible. This goofy music. And I was asking myself, does Lucasfilm even know what Star Wars is anymore? And the reason I'm making these two comparisons is because Star Wars trailers used to always have this moment where it would play the Star Wars anthem at the end. Mm-hmm. And you could get real goosebumps watching it. Phantom Menace is one of the greatest examples of this. And it made me think about how Dragon Quest knows what it is.
It does.
Has an identity. It is a trailer that can consistently hit at the nostalgia feels and has a sense of being really epic. And Star Wars has somehow lost all of that. So
maybe
that's
trying to get the
my
kids,
cat
I
take.
guess.
But I'm really looking forward to playing this. It's a shame that I'm playing five RPGs at the same time right now.
It's a great RPG to play. If I'm still playing Metaphor, which of course is incredible.
Yeah.
We need to have a Metaphor spoiler cast. I think I'd love to have one of those.
Yeah,
but,
well, we've got a giant list of spoiler casts to
really
get through at this point. So I guess we got to do a Final Fantasy VII Rebirth one, and
you have to stream
So-
the ending of that game. That's going to happen. We're not letting that one slip by the wayside.
no,
you do
no,
have
it's
to
gonna
stream the
happen.
ending
I
of
know,
that game.
I know.
Yeah.
God,
But it's
man,
a great
if
game to
only
come
that game
down
would
with.
end.
Hey,
does eventually.
look, I was out there saying that game. We'll talk
So
about it
Amy
on the
finally
spoiler
finished it. Amy finally finished Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and goes, "Thank God! I never thought this game would end." And I was like, is streaming the ending actually a good idea? Is it a streamable kind of situation? Because I'm a little worried here that what point do I start streaming? Is what I'm kind of asking.
I can tell you exactly what point you should start streaming at, and I can
No
tell
spoilers.
it to you. Yeah. It's the last save point in the game. Like, you should just start from there.
Do you know that's the last save point? Does it tell you?
You know it's the last save point. And I'll even I can DM you something that will tell you you're about to be at the last save point of the game. But I feel like the game actually does tell you this is the last save point. From here on out you're on rails.
I didn't listen to that.
I will say, for what it's worth, my issues with Rebirth aside, it has one of the best final boss battles I have seen in games in some time.
It is nuts.
Yeah, it's a rehash in some ways, but it's a really good rehash, and I think it really works. But yeah, I want to see you play that whole sequence.
Wow, Sephiroth is one-winged angel again. Oh my God, he's doing the meteor attack again.
I'm waiting for it to come out on PC, and I want to shout out the community for... I have not seen any spoilers about Rebirth, which is amazing. You guys have been very, very good about not spoiling it. So
yeah, no, it's true. It's true. I'm looking forward to reacting to it.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, I'm playing 3 games at the moment. So in addition to Dragon Age and Metaphor and Persona 3 Reload, which I'm staying with, I'm still caught up on that one. I picked up Pokemon TCG Pocket.
Yeah.
which it's just a deck opening simulator, but I finally got through all the tutorials last night and properly got into the battle system. And it's a slimmed down, simpler version of Pokemon TCG. I finally understand how to play this stupid game. And what it really makes me want to do is play Pokemon TCG for Game Boy Color.
Oh,
Which
All right.
that's
That's
a
a
little
good game.
overwhelming to me because I was like, I don't understand how the evolution and the energy system works. Now I understand. And now I want to go play it. But Eric, you've been playing TCG Pocket, right?
yeah. I think it's a little weird because I think in some ways it does kind of smooth out the ramp of that game. Because y'all can correct me in the chat if I'm wrong, but I think you actually have. I keep wanting to call them lands, but they're energies. Like the energies are actually like cards in your deck, whereas in Pocket, it's like you just have a magical well that spits out one energy every turn. So you have that as an option, but
Which I
like
appreciate, thank God.
I think it does like just
Being
make the game
mana
flow.
starved being mana starved in Magic is one of the worst things ever.
Yeah, I think it does a lot to make those games move a lot faster. And like you have a 20 card deck, which I feel like makes it just very narrowed down, and you're playing like a much faster, like blitz version of Pokemon TCG. But it really is. I was joking with a friend that it's really cool that they put a card game mini game inside this deck pack opening simulator because it's all about opening the packs and getting cards and stuff like that. But I'm going to be honest, like as somebody who during the pandemic got really into Pokemon cards, and now like kind of wants to keep up with it, but a mixture of things that have happened in that community with like how they're distributing rares and stuff like that, but also like just how much money it was. It's nice to have something that I can just kind of check into every day and like, you know, get some packs opened, maybe play a couple matches, and then, you know, I love the wonder stuff that they do, the wonder pack where you can see what your friends have opened in packs and then try to crack that pack and see if you can get what they got and stuff like that. I think it's all very smartly laid out.
That's how I got on YouTube.
Yeah.
Nice.
But
it's good.
the competitive game is a little goofy. Somehow it's sweaty despite being really simple because people seemingly looked up what the most powerful Pokemon cards are
Of the
online
era,
and just
yeah.
immediately spent a lot of money to go get them. I played one competitive match on beginner with my deck that I spent some time building, and they immediately trotted out an EX Articuno, an EX Mewtwo, an EX Dragonite, etc. And when you're fighting them, it's almost like they are on a countdown timer to nuking you. So you're just frantically trying to get their health down as much as possible. And I had terrible card draw for most of the game. But I was able to get my EX Executor out just in time and consistently get the coin flip to go heads. And so I was able to take them out. All of their phony baloney super cards with my little EX Executor. Take that, whoever you are. Spent a lot of money on this game.
10-year-old.
I love the idea that somebody has like an Articuno and a Mewtwo, like these legendary Pokemon, and then in walks the goofiest looking like pine tree dude you've ever seen and just wallops all of them.
Parasect is also pretty good too. And I have a decent grass deck out there. And Reb wrote a story. It's like, starting point is always Farfetch'd. Farfetch'd is a good starting point
Farfetch'd
for
is
a
really
deck.
solid. Hitmonchan, I think, is really good. Has a really good stat line. Like it's kind of fun to do that too. I like the early part of any trading card game environment because you get to really just focus in on like what are the stat lines, what are like the basic numbers we're working with, and it doesn't get too like complicated or over processed the way that like other games kind of start to get way out there and way overdeveloped, in my opinion. So yeah.
I love the art so much, more and more. I don't know how this became the year of TCGs for me. I got into Magic this year. I got into Pokemon, TCG apparently, but this is it. The art is gorgeous, and they do a really good job of displaying it in this game. It's got a polish that the mainline games sure don't have, do they? But I also have been playing the Monster Hunter Wilds beta. Is not polished. There's some really goofy looking graphical glitches right now. Go check out the super duper low poly but models. But they're still working on it. They're still. Also, Monster Hunter Wilds. Would it kill them to have an online lobby system that makes sense? For the love of God, getting your friends together to actually go hunt in that game. Still the most convoluted nonsense I've ever seen in an online game that's popular. But it's Monster Hunter. It's gorgeous. The monsters are really cool to fight. I've been trying out a lot of different weapons. And I've kind of landed on Gunlance this time around. It is so fun to use my shield to block monsters. Sometimes I get into a power push where I smack them in the face with my shield. I love charging up my gun lance and then hitting them with just a giant boof. And the general vibe and style of it works really well for me. I've also been playing again with the great sword, the long sword, playing the hits a little bit. The hunting horn in this one is a giant saxophone.
Yo.
Nice.
Yeah.
Smooth jazz.
Starts playing the intro to Run Away With Me.
Baker Street.
And there are 3 monsters. One is a basic little tutorial monster. One is actually I think there's like 4 monsters to fight in this one. The biggest one being a big dragon, big lightning dragon. And that one has been fairly hard to fight, but it's Monster Hunter. What can I say? I'm riding around on a lizard chocobo.
Yeah, it looks really cool. How is that? It looks like a dinosaur.
I actually like it. It reminds me a bit of Rise, where you're riding around on a dog. Lizard chocobo is fine. Yeah.
I like riding things.
So, when I was done, I was like, I'm back. I can't wait for Monster Hunter Wilds. I can't wait to play Monster Hunter Wilds. I think maybe the most interesting aspect of this one is the camping system. Instead of being in a town, it seems like you're in a camp that is much more in the wilds, as it were. So I think it seems a little more seamless in how things operate, but at the same time, it's still a hub area where you upgrade your weapons and do cooking and all that. So at the end of the day, it's not too different, but it also has an interesting focus system where you can create wounds on monsters and then break those wounds, and I think that's how you can grind drops a lot more efficiently.
Yes.
And that works really well too. Sorry, were you going to say something, Nadia?
No, I said that sounds really cool, because breaking stuff off could be kind of a pain in the ass. High level quality of presentation. It's doing really well on Steam already. I had like 300k concurrence when the beta went live, which is really, really good. So yeah, I've generally heard good things, other than kind of weird graphical glitches, but you're gonna expect that.
Now, did you play a lot of Monster Hunter?
I played the one on the Switch. I played quite a bit of, and I will be playing Wilds. Like, I always start Monster Hunter, and I always love it, but I always feel bad for the monsters somewhere halfway, and I just give up.
Some of those monsters just need killing, though.
Mm-hmm.
That's true.
Like
but I feel bad. So I'll just kind of nut up and try it again, because it does look great. Like, if I had time, I would definitely be playing the beta. I like finally having, like, a dinosaur to ride on. Finally. Nintendo got it in the 90s.
Eric, Len, have you played a lot of Monster Hunter? I forget.
The same people who are always trying to get me into Monster Hunter are the people who also tried to get me into Destiny 2, and I feel like it's a fool me once, shame on me, fool me twice, shame on you situation.
One of those games are good.
Someday, it's more that, like, do I have the time to invest in it? And I don't feel like I do, but I am interested in it conceptually on a level where, like, if I wasn't afraid it was going to take over my life, I probably would have jumped into it by now. But yeah,
it's about having a group for sure.
Yes,
it's the Monster Hunter Stories games that I tend to stick to, because those are about, like, helping the monsters. And those are good games. I like those.
Monsters are friends, not food.
Exactly. They can be food too, but they're also friends. They're friends first, then food.
Friends, I like that the hunters are actually the bad guys, which makes you think, are you the baddie in the Monster Hunter Wilds games? And finally, I picked up Echoes of Wisdom on a whim, and I love it. Unironically love it. I love Zelda in this one. I love the costume. I love the vibes. They're amazing. I love all the things that you can do with the little echoes. I love harassing enemies with bats. I love the ways that the levels are laid out. It's really clever. And I finished the first dungeon the other night.
Nice.
Just had a blast. This game really goes down easy. And as if I need another game to add to the pile, but it's wonderful.
Yeah, I actually finished it not that long ago.
Yeah?
It's definitely the kind of game where it's divisive, and I can see why it's divisive, because people like yourself and me, Kat, were like, oh my god, we have wolves, we can throw wolves enemies, whereas some people look at it more practically, like, I'm just going to use a chair and a table, and I'm up and over, and I'm just going to make a rock to throw at the enemy, and this isn't a lot of fun. And you kind of do have to use your imagination. Like, I loved the fact that I could summon animals to kill goblins. Like, that's awesome.
I'm just sending snakes, just an endless stream of snakes.
Crows. It's the crows that'll really be on your side. Like, they're very cheap in terms of energy, and they get rupees from enemies, and they go after rupees, and they're just assholes because they're crows. And they can go after airborne enemies too. That's one thing to keep in mind. You do have like different echoes for different terrain. Like, you will need like a fish enemy to take on fish. So I actually got the shark. It's really good for that. Get the land enemies, and you got like your flying enemies, which is the crows are good for like both land and air.
We did an Echoes of Wisdom review. I was not on that one, but I just know that I am pro Echoes of Wisdom.
I am too. I enjoyed it a lot.
Len, are you playing anything aside from Dragon Age at the moment?
I'm trying to get back into Metaphor because I played like 25 hours of it right before I got the Dragon Age review code, and then that was like 11 hours a day for like 10 days in a row. And so now I'm like stumbling out of this, Dragon Age sensory deprivation box and being like, what was I doing? Something about I gotta find a monster head. I gotta get a head for a contest, a head contest.
Oh,
I know,
like,
yeah.
You're going to the second town. That's one of my favorite parts of the game.
The way that contest resolved, I was really not expecting. I was not expecting it was just literally going to be, oh, okay, I guess we did that. That's okay, all right. But yeah, I'm enjoying it. I mean, obviously, I'm a huge Atlas fan at this point, so more Atlas games is cool. I like the ways that it's Persona. I like the ways that it's not Persona most of the time. Yeah,
pretty much its own thing. It does have that very good combination of SMT and.
It's like if you were gonna make an evolutionary chart, the Persona branch that came off of the SMT clade, it came off of that branch, but it is its own thing.
Absolutely, it's kind of like the Hungarian language.
Most recent common ancestor with the Persona games, but yeah.
Eric?
I'm playing what some might charitably call an RPG, where, I have these guns that I need to level up, and I level them up by running around a place called Nuketown and shooting them at other people who are screaming into their microphones in the lobby. Friend of the show, Jesse Vitelli, got me in on Black Ops 6, which I was like, I'm not going to play COD. And then I watched about like 5 seconds of somebody just running around in a circle with a shotgun, like shooting people. And I was like, I kind of want to play COD. So I am playing the military sim game, the goofy. It's so weird. It's there is a part of me that really does want COD to be that game where you are still kind of playing the like Spetsnaz and stuff like that, and Navy SEAL team, and not like there's a character that you unlock pretty early on that just has like a pink fuzzy bucket hat that just runs around with it on, and they're like Terminator robots and like glowing versions of characters from previous games. They're like undead zombies and stuff, and I'm like, okay, like we jumped the shark with COD a while ago, I get it, but There is.
I mean, they have Gundam crossovers and I think Warzone. So I mean,
There's
Yeah.
that's
a
where
lot
COD is
of
these days.
COD yaoi out there. Like, you'd be surprised.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
I'm not surprised.
I know exactly who it's about too, but I will say that for what it's worth, this is a pretty good COD for just running around and playing. Yeah, I play a lot of hardcore mosh pit because that's just absolute chaos 100% of the time, and it's a pretty decent one of those. I don't think it's doing anything exceptionally well, the way that I don't think COD is particularly built to do things exceptionally well. I think it's just built to provide a service every year, and it is adequately providing that service. And I can respect that in ways that, like, I think other series, like you say Madden, have kind of struggled to maintain quality year over year when, you know, you're kind of just churning out the same thing with like mild, like granular improvements and things that really only fans are going to care about. But like COD has done a pretty decent job of giving a reason for people to want to go to the new game outside of just, you know, it being the new game. And I haven't played Zombies yet. I've seen some very funny videos of people playing Zombies. I've heard the campaign's supposed to be very interesting. I don't know if I'm going to play the campaign just because I'm like, do I really want to play like a 90s Cold War or like post Cold War, honestly, at that point, conspiracy theory, like Black Ops campaign? I don't know if I'm really in the mood for that with
Apparently, it's
the
really
world.
good this year.
Yeah, like it's got. I've seen
You're
people
into that
drawing
kind of thing.
comparisons to MGS5, which like is my activation phrase. But it's I don't know, maybe I'll try it, but just with the way that things are right now, I don't know if I'm into the idea of a political deep state government thriller type thing right now. I kind of just want to run in circles and spray my silly little machine pistol around corners and stuff and have fun. And we've definitely had a lot of fun in that game, just mindless old COD lobby type stuff. So it's a good one of those, and it's double XP weekend, so it's really fun to watch the numbers go up and level up those guns and get new attachments and get closer to prestiging and all that. So it's, if you miss that, it's pretty open for that. And it's on Game Pass, which is like the main reason why I'm even playing it in the first place.
Yeah, it's a good
So
opportunity.
you really see that strategy kind of pseudo payoff for Microsoft. I guess they spent, you know, $69 billion to have this, and I think it is a pretty good reason for people to want to jump on and use their Game Pass sub stuff. So it's fine. And if you don't like COD, then don't go play COD. I'm not saying this is going to change your mind. This is absolutely for the people who spent hours in the past, like I did, playing Modern Warfare lobbies and stuff and Black Ops lobbies. Like, it's a good one of those. Other than that, I've really just been doing like Pokemon TCG Pocket and kind of looking for stuff to play because I don't really have anything to play for the month of November. So I was thinking about picking up that Romancing Saga or something like that once I wrap Veilguard.
Hey, Romancing Saga. The
Yeah,
Dark Horse game for
I've
our
heard-
audience.
I've heard that's like, some people have said that's one to jump onto if you really want to see like what's up with Saga as a series. And so
What's up with Saga? The
I
new
don't
Axe of
know.
the Blood Gods sub-series.
yeah,
To this day, I don't know.
maybe we'll have an episode a couple weeks down the line.
Got hit
You
by
know,
a smooth Kawazu.
yeah.
Is it time to do a Saga primer? I thought the Dragon Age primer went pretty well.
Yeah, so maybe we, you know, I dig into that remake a little bit. We get an expert on the show, and then we just go deep into Saga.
Oh yeah.
Eric, that would be so helpful because I think that the show, one of our blind spots has consistently been Saga. So having
Kept Paris
being able to
on here.
dig into that a little bit, I know the fans love it.
This is like when you work at a games website and everybody's like, man, we need somebody who plays Warframe because Warframe is doing stuff, and we need somebody. Every editor in the last year or so has had that conversation at a website where they're like, we really need somebody who plays Warframe. And let me tell you right now, Blood God is having the conversation. We need somebody who plays Saga. So I guess the buck has passed to me this time.
Also,
Yeah,
the Trails
I've tried
games.
Saga. I just can't. I don't
Hey,
understand it.
I will only pick up so many bucks. And there's a lot of Trails games out there.
There are.
I'm passing that one. I'll play Sky. I'll play Trails in the Sky. I don't know if I want to play Cold Steel.
I'm looking. What was the one that came out this year? Trails
Daybreak.
into Dawn. Daybreak, Trails
I
into
think
Daybreak.
it's Trails Through Daybreak is the newest one,
Yeah.
which is like the start of the
And
new arc, I think.
Trails Through
Yeah.
Daybreak 2 is next year. So better get on it.
Oh, Count Zero makes a good point. If we do a saga primer, we probably need to get Jeremy Parrish on here.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He
Yeah.
is I think he localized one of the games.
It's been a while since I've potted with Jeremy Parrish, so I'd love to have him on the show.
I very recently potted with him. I pot all the time with him on Retronauts.
Yes, you do, Nadia.
I did.
And on that note, that's it for the tavern. Nadia, take us home.
Last week we were talking about really crappy Halloween candy, and I just want to say, like, okay, so Halloween was the other day, and I'm on Facebook/Instagram. Everyone's kids are bringing home their hauls, and damn, kids are spoiled these days. I don't know if it's just Toronto, maybe, but you know, I see my nephew and my niece coming home with like these big, you know, stashes of chips and full chocolate bars and etc. And I'm thinking to myself, when I was a kid. There was a candy that everybody despised, and I think it's still out there, and they're called molasses kisses. Did you ever have these in... I heard they might not be very popular in the States. To be honest, not very popular in Canada either, but they just keep hanging around.
What are they?
They're basically they're toffee, you know, individually wrapped pieces of toffee that are made out of molasses, and they are
That sounds good.
very... If you don't like sweet things, they're
Then why are you
pretty
eating
good.
candy?
I don't know. It's like if you got lucky, you'd like, you know, bring home your stash, and
So
you'd
it's
have,
not
like,
sweet.
It's kind of sweet. Like, it's hard to describe. Like, I don't know. Have you ever eaten molasses?
Oh, you just said toffee, and that's one of my
Oh
activating
no!
words.
It's a toffee made out of molasses. Toffee I kind of
Ah.
like, but it's bad for my teeth, so I don't really eat it anymore. But yeah, like Lance Hart, who I know is from Canada, is like, oh ew, those things. Yeah, exactly. So I guess kids aren't getting those anymore, even though I used to get them all the time. I guess people stepped up their Halloween game. Good for them. I know that one thing actually that is that I've never seen, like in a Toronto Halloween session, candy corn. Do you guys like always get candy corn for Halloween? Because I know it
They're
has
terrible.
a reputation.
They're
I
in
hate
the
them.
dish.
Yeah.
They're not really given out, I don't think.
It's like filler. Yeah.
They spring into existence, you know.
Yeah.
Ew, like maggots.
By the way,
Yeah.
I'm pro candy corn on this podcast.
We're not
I don't hate it. I don't hate it.
Surprisingly
it's like
addictive.
C tier candy, maybe B.
It's just sugar. It's just
Yeah,
sugar. It's
that's
eating
it.
sugar.
Yeah, that's it. Just like dump a pixie stick in your mouth if that's what you want. But like
I think
I like the texture.
No, the texture freaks me out. I was about to say, like
It's pleasing to me.
you chomp on it and it's a cloud. It disappears. It's just not like a
No, it's good.
You're not left behind with a wad of.
Do you not like cotton candy? I mean,
I kind of like it.
it's a little waxy. That's the weird thing about
It is
them.
very waxy.
waxy sugar.
Yeah. But even
but-
I have to say that it's better than molasses kisses, which are disgusting.
Fair enough. I am pro Butterfingers,
I do like a good Butterfinger.
but nobody better lay a finger on my
I'm on
Butterfingers.
Did you guys have
And-
Simpsons advertising Toyota down there, or was that just a Canada
No.
thing? We had for
No,
some
I
reason.
think that must be a Canada thing.
We had the Simpsons advertising the Toyota Corolla for some reason, and Homer would be like, "It's a Corolla." I'll look up the commercial sometime.
Can you know?
And I just remember my parents being really pissed off that the Simpsons were already hawking shit. Because this was like
That's what they
the
do.
Butterfinger era.
Yeah, I mean the Butterfinger the Butterfinger commercials are classics. Did you know in Japan that there's an entire Twin Peaks story that is told through a series of commercials?
Really? Like
Yes,
Butterfinger commercials?
it's about coffee.
Oh.
Yeah, so they solve a little mystery. I think it has the original actors. They're big on Twin Peaks in Japan. Twin Peaks was a huge sensation over
Although
there.
half the games at the era were kind of inspired by Twin Peaks.
Deadly Premonition, yeah. So, go look it up on YouTube. Huge, lengthy series of commercials telling an all-new story within the Twin Peaks universe. I'm pretty sure it's canon.
I like how the Japanese commercials I love are the ones with Tommy Lee Jones with Boss Coffee.
Yes, I love that. Yes.
Apparently I don't know if he's fluent, but he definitely just like made sure to learn those lines really well. And he sounds so badass talking in Japanese.
What a great career. You don't have
Yeah.
to act in movies. Just go hang out in Japan, make commercials, show up on trains.
Yeah.
He's been doing it for a long time too. He was doing it while I was still living in Japan.
Oh, really?
I was always
They've
kind
been
of
doing it for a
amused to
while.
see him on train ads and such. So in circa 2007, 2008.
I don't know if Boss Coffee's any good, but I know everyone says
It
it's
is.
good, so.
It is.
Yeah.
Boss Coffee is definitely one of my faves. I love those little cans of coffee. They're so good.
And they're hot, apparently? Or some of them?
There are vending machines with hot coffees. Yes,
That is so
and
amazing.
it's a real godsend around this time of year when it starts getting very chilly and very rainy in Japan.
I would love that, like here, just on the corner. Oh, man.
Well, I could use some Boss Coffee myself. That sounds
Me
really
too.
good, but because we just had an extra long episode of Axe of the Blood God, and that is about it for this week's episode. Thank you so much for joining us. Len, thank you so much for joining us. Can you tell us really quickly where we can find you?
Yeah, I am. I do a strategy game podcast called 3 Moves Ahead, idlethumbs.net/3ma. I'm also on the Blue Sky. I'm just len.bsky.social. I'm also on Twitter. You can find that if you want to, but I'm kind of moving away from that, I think.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, especially after the last couple weeks. But yeah, if you like strategy, tactics, simulation, and management games, give us a listen.
Definitely do. 3 Moves Ahead, definitely a friendly podcast to
Yes.
Axe of the Blood God. In the meantime, if you enjoy the show, once again, please support us over on Patreon. Your generous donations are what allow this show to continue going for the past 3 years, fully independent. We really appreciate you. It's helped us grow a lot. It's helped us, for example, be able to give money to Victor so that he can edit our podcasts, and it allowed us to bring on Eric. And every year we grow a little bit more, and we're really grateful for our dedicated community. We are actually heading into the Axe of the Blood God post show with our Stars of Destiny. And this week we're joined by Anthrax Bees, Drew RWX, Flashback 2012, Laguna Matado 124, Sardin, and Spyrus. Thank you so much. We're going to have a good time over on the Discord. Come in, join us. If you would like, we'd love to have you. It's always a laugh, always a little chaotic, a little bit of a pit. Indeed.
LAFF.
We'll be back next week to talk more about the RPGs we love. I've been your host, Kat Bailey, and for Nadia, Eric, Len, and myself, thanks for listening, and happy adventurers.